Hi everyone, Carol here from Oak House Journals. Thank you for joining me again today. This is the second video in the step-by-step process that I take to make the little mini trifold journals. And before I launch into the next stage, I have a question that has been raised following the first video. And the question that I received was, how do I decide which paper I put where in my signature? I can't really be a big help on that, other than to say it's more about how I feel about whether or not the pages sit well together. Sorry, it's very much a subjective test. So if I explain that I like to keep my journals light, if you know me, you know that I'm not too keen on grungy journals, very distressed journals, or very heavy tea or coffee stained or dyed pages in my journals. So that in itself helps me choose which papers I use in my journals. Then, as I mentioned in the previous video, I also like to have quite a nice variety of papers inside my signature. I like a nice mix of colours, including, like this first page, undyed pages, i.e. pages that haven't been tea or coffee dyed or stained, and which might not be vintage. This is a Janet Marsh botanical book page, and that's very contemporary. But I also like to include a lot of vintage pages, and they by themselves and because of their age might have some natural foxing or yellowing of the pages. So when I'm working through my pages to create my signatures, I'm very much looking for pages that sit well together. So these two in my head sit nicely together. This is a Chinese book page. It's a contemporary book, but it has a slight yellow aging to it, even so, whereas this is some tea-stained paper that I've put in, and it's quite a light tea-stained paper. Here I've got the back of that Janet Marsh botanical book page, and it's very contemporary. As you can see, it's unstained, it's fairly white, and I've put it next to a vintage receipt, and this is the carbon sheet from a vintage receipt. Now, they might not look like they sit well together, but in my head they will do. They're not far apart in terms of the colour change, but as I mentioned in my previous video, I may well use some of this paper here to create a journaling spot on this page, and on this page do a bit of a collage where I use some of the book page, so I marry the two in together to get a nice flow throughout the book. The other thing I will do, where I have something like this brown painter's masking paper, I will put it next door to something that is nearer in colour to it. So for example, this tea-stained paper here, or page, is slightly darker than the one I've used earlier in the book here. Over the page, I've put it next door to some Ranger vellum, which of itself has a slight darker background colour to it. So I kind of play with my pages to see how they will fall, and if they don't fall well, say for example here, as I've mentioned, I will do something on the page to marry the two together. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense to you, and I hope I've explained it well enough. That's the best I can explain it, really. But the only thing I can say overall is have a play, do what feels right for you. There isn't a right way or a wrong way in making these journals, or in making any part of the journals, whether it's choosing your signature or doing the collaging on the covers. It's whatever feels nice and comfortable for you. So just relax with it and go with it. Okay, so what have I done since the first video? Well, I decided which out of those covers I was going to use for this particular botanical journal, and I fixed on this one for no particular reason, that I liked the A on the front and the signature on the back. So I've chosen this one. I've also decided on which of those images that I was showing you in the previous video I wanted to use on the cover, and as you can see, I've gone for the bigger Edith Holden image here, and I've actually chopped out an extra little bit here, and I've included that on the front. I've positioned my pieces, this one, so that it's overlapping onto the back cover, just because I think that will give me more interest. These are images from Janet Marsh's book, and again I've used several images here which I've just again paper clipped in place, and again I've wrapped them over the back cover into the inside cover. I've also put an image here along the spine, as you can see, to break up that long piece of vintage ledger paper. So that's what my cover will look like. I've done nothing inside. That's left for the moment, and I will just set this aside now until I'm ready to finish my signature. Let me get back in frame for you. Sorry about this, I'm all over the place today. The reason being that sometimes I like my images on the cover to sit on top of my stitching. This is unstitched and uninked at the moment. It's just collaged and sealed. So sometimes I like my images to sit over the top of the stitching, in which case that means I need to stitch first. Other times I'm quite happy to stitch over the top. It just depends how my mood takes me. The reason I'm leaving this one as it is for the time being is because I haven't decided on the 3 images I want to use inside this particular journal. I need to choose those, so those are on my to-do list to do. Once I've chosen those, and if I want a break from working on my signature, then I may well add those to the inside covers, finish off the pockets by gluing them and stitching all the way around the cover, in which case I will then at that time obviously do the fixing of these images. Okay, you will notice from those images that I haven't used all of the ones that I showed you yesterday. That's not a problem. I'm only left with these 2 that are left over. Now, I quite often fussy cut quite a few images and then play around with them on my cover before I make a decision. The ones that are left over are not wasted. I will either put them to one side and use them in another project, or I will use them inside the journal that I'm working on, because invariably they are the right colour scheme for using inside as well as on the cover. And these 2, I know that I definitely will be using them inside the journal, either as part of a collage or a tuck spot, or as just a point of interest, or I might even use them on a tag. So by no means are these wasted. Okay, so that's that. What else have I been doing? Well, I've been going through my books and picking out some images of things that I might want to include in the journal as well. So these I might use for tags or tuck spots. I might not use them, but what I'd like to do is I like to have these to one side as I'm working on my signatures, so that I can earmark them for inclusion on a particular page, either as a tag or a tuck spot or part of collaging. If you bulk make, I know Tina of Shabby Dabby Doodah likes to mass make, then by all means lift out your tags, your pockets, and have them by the side of you so that you can earmark those for including on a certain page. I don't tend to bulk make. I will if I'm fired up about a project. So you will have seen a couple of videos back. I did some envelope style journaling spots, and I made several of those and did a video of them. So I have a few of those tucked away in my stash to pull out and perhaps use. And I will lift those out and have them, like these images, to one side as I'm going through my signatures so that I can earmark them for including in the signature. The other thing that I've done is I've pulled out my template, and this is my template for the page that I'm going to put in the centre of my mini trifold journal. If you remember, yesterday I showed you let me find the centre signature. That's the centre of my signature. I showed you a craft card page with a pocket along the bottom, and then on either side a double side pocket. And as I explained in that video, I no longer include those in my signatures because they made the whole signature too bulky with the inclusions and the thickness of the craft card. Plus also it was getting too dark, I felt. I don't mind using the range of vellum and also the masking paper, but not too much. I'd like to keep my journals quite delicate. So I've started using this pocket template. It doesn't look much at the moment, but this is my template, and it was a centre pocket that Rachel of Roxy Creations created, and I fell in love with it when I saw it, and I love using it. Rachel doesn't include a vellum pocket along the bottom of her design. I like doing that, but you can alter these pockets and tuck spots to suit you. There's no right or wrong way, as I say. So I've lifted out my template. I'm not going to use this image. This is, as I say and keep saying, just my template. I need to choose an image that I'm going to create the page out of. But for ease, these are the right dimensions for my page. So that's on my to-do list. I need to pick out an image for my centre of the signature. Okay, right. I have also fixed on using this particular signature. Of the two that I showed you in the last video, this is the one that I'm going to use for this particular journal. And what I've done is I've gone through it to decide what I might want to do on each page. I say might because this may change, and usually does change as I'm working through the pages in the signature. By doing this, i.e. going through and trying to decide what I'm going to do on each page, by doing this I try to get an idea of the level of interest on each page. I'm trying to get an even balance in the interest on each page, and the interest I'm talking about may be an inclusion, e.g. a tag or a floating pocket, or it may be just what is on the actual page itself, for example a tuck spot or a pocket or a collage. It stops me from having too many inclusions in one place in the journal. Say, for example, at the start, as I'm working through, I don't want all my tags or all my floating pockets at the front. I want a nice even distribution throughout my journal. It also stops me getting too much bulk. And I say that very tongue-in-cheek because those of you who've watched my videos of my minis know that they are all, each and every one of them, chunky monkeys. As much as I try, they always end up chunky monkeys, because the bit that makes my heart sing about making journals is decorating them. So this next bit from here on in, the remaining videos to come, are what makes my heart sing, and I find it really difficult to stop. So by working through my signatures, it makes me realise how chunky it's getting before I get to the stage where I simply cannot shut the little trifold journals. Now these journals, because of the wraparound cover, they're very forgiving and I get away with it a lot of the time. But if I was, say, for example, making a hard-covered book, I wouldn't get away with it. I would end up with an alligator-mouthed book. So that's why I do that. I go through each and every page, and as you can see, I use a lot of Post-it notes. And as I go through each of my pages, I mark with a Post-it note what I'm going to do on that page. It might just be an idea that will change later. It might be that I don't know. But I will also put in any tags that I've made or I'm going to make as I go along, so that I know how chunky this is going to be. And I will work through my signature time and time again, even after I have decided on an idea for a page. The reason I do that, keep on going over and over as I'm working through my signature, is that it will stop me making mistakes. For example, sticking down a page when I wanted to add something else on it, which I should have done first. For example, if I've stitched around the outside of a page when I wanted to add a tuck spot that is also stitched. In those circumstances, if I've stitched all the way around the page and then put a corner tuck spot that I've also stitched, I could end up with 2 or 3 lines of stitching on the, in and around the corner tuck spot, and that wouldn't work for me. I wouldn't like that. Also, as I go over and over working through my signature and checking it, it gives me additional ideas where I might be stuck on a page and not quite know what to do with it. As you can see here on this one, I put possible flip out pocket. I'm not sure if I want to do one on that or not. So by working through the other pages, by the time I get to this page, I probably have a pretty good idea that that's what I want to do, or not, what I want to do instead. If not, I will leave this page and I will come back to it having worked through other pages. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of my process. Just to give you an idea of what I've earmarked for this signature. I'm not certain about what I want to do with this front cover, other than I will stitch round the outside. I've put on here possible lace edging because, as you can see, I've got a little bit of a waterfall effect here, and that gives me my excuse to put a bit of vintage lace down the side there. Over the page here, I said that I might want to put in another botanical page to make a side pocket, or I might want to make a journaling spot. Well, I've made the decision. I want to put in a botanical side pocket here. Here I've earmarked for doing a clipping on a tag and doing some edge collaging. Here, possible lace and collage tabs. Here you can see I've put in a little clip of Chinese book page, and that is to remind me that I need to collage to marry in these 2 pages together. Where are we? Let's pick another page for here. Here I'm going to put a glassine envelope. Here on this vintage receipt I'm going to stitch down some botanical or floral stamps. Here I've highlighted that I'm going to put some stitching round this Observer book page, and also to do some collaging underneath. What else? Here I'm going to do a lace snippet, and here I'm going to do an over the edge flip out, and then inside a vellum pocket for a vintage slide. So I've kind of worked through. This is a flip up, or I don't know what you call these. It's an over the page tag that I created several of these. So this I've earmarked to include on this page in my journal, and it just sits over the top of the page, and I will put it in my journal at this stage so that I know that that will sit there, and I will also put a post-it so that if this becomes detached as I'm working, I don't have to ferret around trying to find the page that I was going to put it next to, because believe you me, when I start working on these things, I do forget where things are going to go. I think I've put in something else. Yeah, this is one of my little miniature craft floating pockets. I've made oodles of these when the mood so took me, and I have a few of them left, and this one I've earmarked to finish decorating and put on the page here that is painter's masking paper. And the reason I've done that is because of the browns all marrying in together. So that's my process on how I identify my pages for decorating. And now from here on in is the best bit, and the bit that I enjoy the best or the most, and I actually get to sit down and start decorating my pages. So that's what I'm going to start doing from the next videos onwards. And just before I leave you, another thing I should mention, how I work through my signature is that way. I work through from the first and the back page together, and I start working through. So this page will be the first one that I work on and decorate, and then I will put it aside, and then I will work on this one and put it aside. And the reason I do that is because I can keep on checking against the next page that I'm going to decorate what it's going to look like, so that I don't make any glaring mistakes. So it's a little bit hard to describe. I work through from the back and the front simultaneously, working on each page. That's just how I prefer to do it. There's no rhyme or reason to why I do it like that, other than it enables me to, rather than do this and then this and then this and then this all the way through to the back. The only reason I do it my way is that way, is so that I can keep checking as I go that I've got continuity and a flow throughout. And then my last thing that I do will obviously be my center page here, and then it's ready for stitching. I have tried working from the center to the back, and I actually did that with the last journal that I did to set myself a bit of a challenge, but I'm not comfortable doing it that way for some reason. It didn't feel like it flowed. I felt like I was struggling for some reason, and there should be absolutely no reason why I should, but my preferred way of working, as I say, is from the back through to the center. So the first pages that I will be decorating and will show you in the next video will certainly be these two pages, and depending on how well I get on, this third page. So give me a day or two and I will show you what they look like in the next video. So thank you so much everybody for watching. If you have any questions, please just put them in the comments down below or send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer them if I can. And I hope you enjoy watching the videos, and I hope you have a go at making one of these mini trifold journals yourself. So take care everybody, and that's all for today. So bye bye now.